All right. So, how to build reliable AI-powered developer workflows. Let's do this. So, once upon a time. So, platform engineering has evolved quite a bit over the last decades. And that's not only getting this fancy name, but also getting fancy tooling and finally recognizing that building a platform actually means driving a huge change project that changes process, mindset, and culture. The discipline that is dominant in that regard is platform product management, or better known as PARP, or platform as a product. These are the people that are currently exceptionally challenged to plot the same path when it comes to enhancing platforms with AI capabilities. Not building a platform to build AI things. That is actually quite a different thing. Yeah? But imbuing AI into a platform for developers, what I have come to know as an IDP or internal developer platform. Because suddenly everyone has an opinion again, and there's just not statistical evidence to what is actually adding value without opening a can of risk. So let's take a look at what we'll do today, and hopefully that will help you to make a few experiments and generate the evidence that is needed for your specific case to plot a path. So the agenda. What have we traditionally done? A little bit of an intro to the topic, a proposal, and then I'll show you a little bit of a demo of what is up and coming. Then we'll do a hands-on keyboards exercise. We're doing a workshop here anyway, right? So what I've shown you in the demo, you will repeat in the workshop part, and then we'll gather some ideas for experiments and see what we can do and what we can't. I'll show you a new reference architecture, and then we'll draw some conclusions, and I'll add in some experiences to the mix, and I'll leave plenty of time for Q&A at the end, because all of those AI topics, when you look at it realistically, is that it adds so much flexibility. When you plot a presentation path, you cannot really guesstimate what is completely interesting or what is coming up into the minds of all of the people around. So I hope to draw a little bit on your swarm intelligence here to give me great questions, what comes up to your mind, what is inspiring you, and hope to give you my reflections to it. All right, let's do this. So what we started out on is that sentence some time ago. Missing developer self-service, cognitive load, and waiting times are the #1 killer of productivity in the cloud. And there is tons of evidence to support this. That might be statistical, that might be generated and gathered. There might even be big research on that, like Dora. Yeah? And find out on your own. That is a true sentence. The question was, what do we do against that? And what we've done in the past is we've tried to build platforms. So what I've been also showing to people a lot are those reference architectures. I don't know if you have seen those already, but they are pretty prominent all over the place. And I think they are pretty self-explanatory, right? We divide the world into those planes. They give us a common language, some reference points, and they also divide into meaningful portions. Yeah? We have a few very dominant things here, like the IDE, which is the central influential point for developers to work in the whole thing. We have the integration and delivery plane, which produces all of the output that gets deployed in the resource plane. Yeah, and the rest is providing all of the needed support. We've built out those patterns mainly for two reasons: to standardize things and to reap the benefits of the efficiencies of scale. And that worked out nicely. But the more we wanted to standardize, the more we wanted to reap those efficiencies, the more we had to apply guardrails and remove flexibility, narrow in the path. And that pattern continued for quite some time. And we've been very successful with that. That led to Humanitech building out a platform orchestrator. And you can see a little bit the evolution here. When that thing started out to be the central standardization engine in a lot of platforms, that was around CI pipelines, code, IDE extension came along, and a CLI. All of that were prominent interfaces. I'm not talking about the API, that was always there, right? The next evolutionary step was onboarding developer portals and actually accepting them into the standard interfaces. You've seen that already back here. Up here, there usually is a portal layer that is interfacing with all of the rest. Yeah. And then all out of a sudden, the latest bubble appeared some time ago, and that was this interface part here. And lo and behold, that was all out of a sudden adding a ton of flexibility. Because suddenly you could talk to your platform and have a good conversation with it. Yeah? So that was basically the nucleus of that question. How do I plot a sane path for my platform if I want to actually imbue it with AI capabilities? Because there is so much flexibility. And that's how a basic interface looked like, right? Prompt me. I'm possibly going to read that out aloud to double down on the irony here. So build me a platform. It should help reduce cognitive load for developers and make it easy to roll out change for platform engineers. It should keep the technical debt low by separating concerns, responsibilities, and also artifacts into clear defined repositories. It should enable developers to self-serve and eliminate ticket ops. It should be able to standardize and eliminate drift without renewed deployment. It also should be flexible enough to include my current tech stack, but free enough to allow me to modernize that stack over time. Well, a sensible ask, right? Hand that over to an AI, it probably starts thinking for a long time. Not only because that is a very complex prompt, but also this highlights a little bit the irony of the interface. Having a good conversation with your platform is typing a lot of text and trying to understand and get everything in there so that the output is just right, so that the little thinking robot down here actually gets the right thing in return for you ready. You probably know about all of that, but I'm setting the stage here nevertheless for the main problems when implementing. Yeah. So what I'll be doing today for you is I'll introduce you to Canyon, which is an AI for developer self-service and which is built to be exactly that kind of interface, but also to be better. And the reasons why this is better, let me highlight them for you before I show you the thing. One thing up front, is this going to be a product pitch now? Nope. Canyon is implementing a few patterns, and they've been surfaced during the design and testing process. So basically, while Canyon was being built, Canyon became Canyon. We changed the engine and we did a lot of things to shape the thing in the actual design process. And what I'm giving you today are the core tenets, the core patterns. You can implement them yourself. Just ask an LLM to do it for you. It's really quick. if you hit the same quality, the same eventualities when thinking about all of the edge cases, I don't know, but it's fair game. Yeah. So try it and test it. What works? When you think about actually building AI into your platform, one thing that we learned quickly is that AIs cannot work unsupervised without high risk beyond development stages. And that awesome acronym HITL works well. So HITL stands for human in the loop. And that means if you let an AI produce things, rather let it work on small steps, small iterations, and let a human confirm that the output of each of those steps is actually in line with what you want to get. AI will produce different outcomes on the same prompt. There might be subtle changes, but there will be changes. And that is one of the core problems. So what we designed when thinking about this was the concept of a path. So I'll dive into in the anatomy what a path is in a second, but the gist is paths work well. They overcome the problem of the hallucinations and the subtle changes by providing guardrails for the AI to follow along. In the same way that we provided guardrails in the past for developers to follow along. Now we are guiding the robots so that the robots can guide the humans. Works well. AI is the new data leak. So this is a little bit of a bummer, but this is actually sound advice. Do not rely on models and data pools that are not actually private. That are actually private? There's a not missing here. Let me add that after the presentation. So what people have found out more and more, and also what we have seen almost happen to us, is that if you are not exceptionally careful, and if you do not confine your work with AI models to actual commercial agreements that are guarded by SLAs, which safeguard your data, then your data might be used for training of models. What does not sound so dire at first, okay, it's been used for training, actually ends in the fact that if you use the right prompts and ask the right questions, you can get that data out of the model again. Sometimes the exact data, sometimes enough of a data framework to help data forensic specialists to reconstruct enough to compromise your stance from security or from an information security pattern. Right? That is not a good thing to happen. So please, please keep that in mind. And last but not least, interestingly enough, interface does matter. And actually, we did not listen to this advice ourselves. Do not try to invent a rounder wheel for developers. Actually, we did. So when we thought about, okay, how can we get enough people to test our newest AI toy, to slowly but surely remove the toy character and turn this into something that you can actually work with, we needed to find out how to get that out quickly. And the best choice obviously was, let's build a web interface, right? People will just need to open that in the browser, and then they can chat, and that's going to be awesome. And the part where they just needed to open the browser window, that worked. But all of the rest did fail phenomenally, because that was neither the experience that people actually wanted, nor was it actually beneficial from the perspective of a platform. And that is also true for most of the integrations that you see nowadays. I'll integrate my personal bot into Slack, and then I can go to the Slack channel, and then I can type in a request. But how useful is that for developers? If usually what they query about is actually always in a connection to what they are working on, so what they have right in front of them. What is inside of their IDE? It's not called integrated development environment for no reason, right? The I in there means a lot to developers, and I hold that pattern true and truly dearly to my heart because I've been developing things for the better part of my life as well, right? So what I always tried to fish for in the past was, is there some kind of a plugin for my IDE? So I have whatever I need to work with at my fingertips and hopefully can correlate things to each other. Like if I'm working on a ticket, is my IDE able to have a plugin for the ticket system? Can I, if I have a personal workflow, like I'm creating a fix, can I then commit that fix into version control and at the same time commit the same thing as the new status to the ticket system without me needing to insert data double times or go to a web interface and needing to insert data double times there? Yeah, same thinking. But as I said, we failed on the first shot before we actually got our implementation into the IDE. Because for a platform, that's even much more relevant. Yeah? Every time developers work on infrastructure, for example, they want to be as abstracted away from that, obviously, but still that needs to be grounded in what software they are working on, their application. If there is no connect, then you're actually adding cognitive load again and adding double work. All right, so these are tried and tested patterns. Let's take a look at the anatomy of a path, because what is that? A path is actually quite simple. It is a simple structured and descriptive format. In our case, that was partly YAML and partly scripted. And the outcome was easy to read for humans. So for me as a platform engineer, that was easy to read and easy to write and easy to understand. So there was no ambiguity here what the thing would be doing. From my perspective as a human, incidentally, it was also easy to read for LLMs because it was highly structured in nature. So there was no ambiguity for the LLM either to what it should do. Great. So what's the outcome of that? If you provide it in a rigid enough way, then it is able to stop hallucinations and get to deterministic outcomes. Yeah, because that YAML structure that we had was actually building up a path out of steps that needed to follow after each other, and which were needed from the perspective of the workflow, the parts of the platform that were actually needed to interact with each other to produce an outcome. But now, instead of me needing to follow that workflow and address all of those interfaces and APIs, the LLM was actually doing it for me. And the LLM was actually providing me with the flexibility in parameters and in variations without me needing to carry the cognitive load. I could simply ask it to guide me along, and it would be like a good tutorial wizard, taking me along for the ride. And that is a pattern that actually works. Right. So let's take a quick look at how that looks schematically. So developers, IDE extension, request towards Canyon. What is Canyon in this case? Canyon is an MCP server. That's what it has become in the end. And inside of the IDE VS Code in this case, I hope you all have installed Klein already, which is a chatbot interface for VS Code that allows you to interact with not only one, but all of the MCP servers that you have. More to that later. But it interacts with the Canyon MCP server that actually queries a model for the actual way to follow along. We propose a path. We possibly have an authorization by the developer. Why possibly? Well, there might be auto authorizations activated. Then that is validated against enhanced security permissions. There might be some kind of policy as code, which is applied to all kinds of requests. And the output, and that is through
Hi all. Very, very sorry. There was a mistake here on the back end. I accidentally took over host privileges from Clemens. So please forgive me and let's get him back in here ASAP. Moment. And don't worry, you're not left alone yet. I'm working here hard as I can on the sidelines to get this back. So all right. Hi, Clemens. Welcome back. I'm very sorry for another hiccup, but I see you again. I will spotlight you for everyone so we have your face large. And again, to everyone, sorry about this. Let's get back.
if something can go wrong, it will go wrong. I don't know if that is good or bad. We'll find out. Okay. I hope
Hey Jay,
everybody.
can you start from the architecture flow again one more time because it was stopped interruptly, right?
Okay, so from here.
Yes, from here. Thank you.
Okay, can do. Just give me a second and a sip of coffee to regain my composure. Cheers. All right. So how does that look like schematically? Let's take a look at how this works. So a developer sitting in front of his IDE, VS Code in this case, and using Klein. I hope you all installed Klein, which is a chatbot interface for VS Code, which allows to send a request towards Canyon. So what is Canyon in this case, or what has it become? It actually is an MCP server by now. So MCP stands for Model Controller Protocol, and allows a generic chatbot like Klein to actually interface with different capabilities. In the same way that a language server would surface the semantics and structure of a programming language to an IDE, so that the IDE does not need to understand each and every language on its own, but can rely on the specific language server for a specific language, if you're editing something for this language. An MCP server works in exactly the same way by providing a capability to a model. In this case, the developer is asking Canyon to do something, invoking a capability. What happens now is that that goes over to the model of choice. And the model of choice will pick, in this case, a path. It will propose a path. Why propose? Well, the next step is actually that human in the loop step. So now the developer must authorize or confirm the usage of that path. That is important for security reasons, even though it might be not happening at all because there's automatic authorization. Yeah. And to counter any problems that come with this pattern, there might be a check against additional additional security measures like policy as code. And also, and this is very important for security, you can see here SAML. So there is an authentication. So the MCP server, in this case, before it is actually interacting with the world, is taking on the credentials of the user that is invoking it. So you are basically authorizing the MCP server to act on your behalf and then request changes to or query the things that are behind, whatever that is. So that's how it works. Let's find out how it actually works, just so you have a look. Yeah, that's how it will be in a second, as soon as I start my instance and show you around a little bit. So generally speaking, Canyon meets the developers where they are. It is embedded in their IDE. Slack and Teams might be coming along for those cases where you have the occasional information request and are actually inside of that interface and just want to have the information there. So it executes deterministic paths. It asks for approval every time. You will see that blue button soon quite a few times. You can choose your own favorite model. You're not bound to just one. And you can switch over to the CLI or a code-based view at any time. And also it helps you visualize things in a nice way. All of that, once again, is not just bound to Canyon. Canyon is just a set of patterns that allows the chatbot to interact in a specific way with your platform. So this is literally about your platform building journey. What are your requirements? How to turn them possibly into the concept of a path, and then enabling a chatbot-like interface to execute those paths so your developers can gain value from that additional interface. I definitely need to share something else. Share the whole screen here. That is strange. Eskil, did you disable sharing options for me? Okay. Inconvenient. Do it like this and hope that it works. Okay. You should hopefully now be able to see two things. And I needed to open this window before because I seem to not be able to share the whole screen. So I can only share those windows, so they need to be present. So as you can see, I only have an env.rc file that is using a little tool called the-env to pre-populate my environment with a few environment variables. And there is nothing secret in here. So I'm just setting a few parameters. I'm extracting the secret from here, so you won't see it here. Nothing fancy. Yeah. That's all that's happening in that directory right at the moment. And to have some fun now, I need to go to the Klein extension. And as this is using Vertex, Gemini 2.5 Flash in this case, yeah, I need to actually prep this with context because this is not a trained model. Yeah? It is a model, a generic model utilizing an MCP server for capabilities. That means I actually need to provide the context. And I'm doing this exactly here. No worries, when you do this on your own, I will provide you with this prompt so you don't need to type that. Yeah. But that is setting the stage for the LLM to understand. It says, hey, I understand. I will use Humanitech and Kenyan tools. Be concise. Indicate low confidence when applicable. Use Kenyan demo as the organization ID and call Kenyan path via call Kenyan path. That API request has already cost me close to a cent if I execute it enough times. So let's confirm this a little bit more. I'm using the Kenyan demo org today for all of my following queries. Please confirm if you do understand this. And do not hit the wrong button, or we will get close to that 1 cent today. Okay, so again, setting the stage. As you can see up here, this is the context window. So if that is gone, then I will actually need to prep this again. All right. So what it says here as well is I want to use a tool on the Kenyan MCP server. It wants to list orgs and a session. I'm actually auto-approving this now, so you don't see me pushing that button all of the time. And it says, hey, it seems like this user is actually logged in, so I don't need to log in anymore. List Kenyan path. Hey, cool. I want to approve this. And it says, okay, I have confirmed my understanding and successfully listed the organization and path for Kenyan demo. I'm ready for your next query. Great. So let's shoot off this query and see. So our queries will use the Kenyan demo organization. I'm ready for your next query. Great. So what I have done here is given the LLM enough context to understand where I want to work now. If you would be providing this as part of a platform, obviously you would want to have a model that is actually trained to understand the context better, at least to a certain extent, so that developers do not need to have this setting of context done every time. All right, so let's play around with it now a little bit. Let's see, can you list the applications that I have access to? It's okay. List apps and envs. I want to auto-approve that in the future as well. That's a lot, right? The applications I have access to, that will not be the same for you. right? Because I'm an administrator in the organization, you will be members as soon as you have received the invitation, which will lead to the fact that you will actually be able to not see all of that here. Yeah, but let's see. So I can see a lot of things happening here. So the first thing that I possibly want to understand is how these things are actually relating to each other. And I really cannot see that well from such a list. Yeah. So what I want the thing to do now is I want to help me as a human by giving me a visualization. And that's where you see the natural limitation of this kind of interface immediately. All right. So let's see. I want to render all apps, environments, and workloads as a graph. That's possibly a little bit too much. I want to render all apps and environments as a graph. Let's see. So as you can see, what it does is first of all, generate the graph, which is in this case a ton of JSON. A ton of JSON. And now it says, hey, I want to render that graph in a browser. Sure, please do that for me. And now I need to get that over here. I need to share that as well. So you can take a look. Right. Here we go. So this is also part of the Canyon experience, that it is able to not only open this up in the browser, but provide you with a little bit of formatting around that. So now I can zoom in on any of those applications, like this one here, Saudi Arabia Reloaded. And I can take a look at what this application actually carries along. And this is another thing that we found out, that people really do care about annotations, so to speak. They care about the information that they can get out of this view. So all you see on the right-hand side here is really, really important to them. And I guess to you as well, because if you would not have this information on the right-hand side here, it would possibly be quite meaningless to touch one of those nodes. Yeah, but now I can actually click on this application and I can see that this is up for 222 days. If you go back 222 days, then possibly Canyon wasn't even in existence at all. So some of this data is actually just generated. But nevertheless, it gives you an idea of how such a view could look, what you could have. Yeah, and there's interesting things in here. Yeah, and also I have links here to other parts of my platform. Yeah. I can, for example, see that this was possibly deployed partly by Harness and partly by Argo CD. It is observed by New Relic. So this data here, failures, last deployment, response times, these kind of things, they are probably coming from New Relic. So if I want to know more than the quick overview I have here, I can jump off to the specific system. If not, I can click around and gather more data. Right. Okay, great. So what else can I do? I could now, for example, create a new application. What about that? Can you create a new application? What ID would you like for the new application? I would like to call it PlatformCon 25J. All right, now it says, hey, I want to call a Canyon path. The name is create application. The ID I'm giving over is this. Sounds good to me. I'm approving. And you can see now one of the things that is actually problematic. If that time takes so long that I can envision in my head to actually type out the commands to make that happen, what the LLM is trying to do here, I'm immediately dissatisfied. I know that I can create an application quicker. What is it doing? Aha. Okay. Now, the path returned the following result. Success. I have created this here. Wait a moment. GitHub.com? Okay. Oh, there's a link as well. Let me open that up. Are you able to see that? Yes, I hope so. As you can see, that has actually executed something on top of GitHub. Aha. So this is why it took a little bit longer. This went to GitHub, something executed there remotely. Now I understand why it did take a little bit longer. Not so dissatisfied anymore. Yeah. I've created a new application with the ID. You can view the details here. Okay, so I've seen the details already. Great. So go away. Go away. Can you render the graph of my new application, including all environments, workload, and infrastructure? Mhm. Sure. Go ahead. Here we go. And now I slowly start to understand why it was actually possibly taking a little bit longer. So it started out on the application here, yeah, but then it actually provisioned 3 environments for me: development, staging, and production. And here I can see that the status is degraded, which means it possibly has not yet fully deployed. Yeah, but there is a DNS record over here. And there's a route over here. So somehow this application is actually doing things. Something meaningful has happened in the background. Okay, great. But I also understand possibly if I want to start now to code here, I will need to solve a problem. So what else could I do? I could now let the thing create a database and then use that database to store some data. That's where I start programming. So I could now say, hey, can you create a DB in the development environment of my new application? And that's where I stop. because I quickly want to fix the problem that you don't have an invite yet, and then I want you to do that. So I will, together with you, configure Klein if you haven't done so. Then you will get the right prompts for me for setup, and then you can start experimenting together with me. Because where's the fun in me doing all of that, right? Okay, so for that, I want to quickly stop the sharing. I want to tell you that I will possibly need a few minutes. So if you need a bio break, if you need a refill in your cup of coffee, if you want to quickly go to the toilet or anything else, now would be a good time. I will stay here. You can see my concerned face while I try to hack away and actually solve the problem. All right, first batch of invites is rolling out. So anyone who registered on the 23rd should get an invite very soon. Oh, I only need to do all people who registered on the 24th. And then we can continue with the fun. I'm actually wondering how many people are in the room here. I have seen that I have over 300 registrations. So that's the reason why this is actually taking a moment to get all of the registrations out. Cool. That is done. Batch should be smaller. Okay. If anyone could confirm to me over the chat or just speaking that he has received an invitation, I would be really happy. Yes. Yay. All right. Let's give it a minute or two. That I've just created over 300 new users. The system is handing out registrations as quick as it can, but that happens over email. So now our mail server and your email provider are happily handshaking and trying to get that to your inbox. That sometimes just takes a little bit. And I hope that ask the LLM to do it. Yes, I almost did. I almost did. Actually, in my hassle to be really, really quick and try to get this done before the workshop starts, I actually asked an LLM to generate the formula that I applied inside of the spreadsheet that generated the script, which is creating all of the invitations from the spreadsheet using API calls for that. That is actually, it's like the two interfaces that everybody was waiting for, right? Finally a chatbot, and then the second one, finally Excel for platform engineering. If anybody builds that, I'm done. I'll need a new job. All right, so you should actually all hopefully have an invitation by now. And yeah, let's get going again, I would say. Okay, so my assumption here is that hopefully everybody's back. I'm starting to share this again. And let's take a look into the setup together. You should have received setup instructions to actually install VS Code, install the client, little robot body here plugin. Now you have the invitation to the organization. That is actually very easy. You just need to click on the thing to get your seat. What you then need to do is you need to go into client here. So let me see if I can actually annotate that for you. No. That possibly has stopped my sharing. I don't know. I will find out. Okay, so client body here, then here, settings. Inside of here, you probably have configured an API provider already, GCP Vertex AI. The Google Cloud project ID is Canyon AI Demo. I suggest that you use Europe West 1 because that's where the cloud project is. And I suggest also that you use Gemini 2.5 Flash. Do not go further into the settings here because then I would actually need to show you my API token. And I don't want to do that, but that's what you should actually do. That should lead to the fact that down here, you can select your model. Done. you can start out with that interesting prompt. And I do hope last year I had a limitation that people could not copy and paste from the chat of Zoom. I hope that this is not the case anymore. Because this is now the starting prompt for you guys. And I'll start one right away here. That leads to the fact that on my side, it has actually called out to Canyon, and Canyon has validated that I'm logged in to my Humanitech organization. In your case, that should lead to the fact that the system asks you to log in. If it does, please do so. I will give you a moment for that. So if you've reached that point, it will be great to use the second prompt for reinforcement. And what you will possibly see is that the thing is not executing things automatically. As you can see, I have auto approve on for a few things, and you've seen me throughout my last run always click on those little squares which says future auto approve. So I accepted that. So it says, I confirm I understand that all queries will use the Canyon demo organization AI ID. Great. And now can you list all applications that I can see or I have new access to in the org. And that actually produces that list, which includes a lot, and in your case should be pretty empty. You can resolve that problem with two queries. The first one is to say, I want to create an application. Can you help me with that? Yeah. So please guide me through the process and give me detailed feedback on each step. Interestingly enough, it is actually now querying the documentation in the background. how to create an application. So what application ID and name would you like to use? I would like to use PC25J or both. So I do not want to run this. Don't have access to the page. All right. Is that just a problem for Michael, or is that a problem for everyone? Me too. Me too does not sound good. Same issue. Okay. So somebody, please paste the link that doesn't work into the chat. Thank you very much. Okay, for me, it works. Aha. Okay, can you please try again? I'm very sorry for that. Yes, it should actually auto refresh and load. Perfect. One step further down the road. Cool, but that means you are all a bit behind. Doesn't matter. You should be able to either quickly catch up, or you can actually, after the workshop, also together with the video, just replay that again. But I think I will be slow enough so you can actually catch up. All right. I didn't want to create that application because I wanted to have room for another solution. So you could actually have access to something to play around with. Is there a way to get access to an existing app? I can already see that this is not going down the right road. I know that there is the abracadabra application, and you get access to it for me. Please check if there is a path that gives access to project abracadabra. All right, as you can see, call the canyon path, access project abracadabra. So this is now actually giving me viewer access to Project Abracadabra. All right. As you can see, access Project Abracadabra is a path, create application is a path, create ephemeral environment, remote environment, and link Postgres resource definition. So as soon as you have access to Project Abracadabra, you could, for example, can do this for environments and workloads of Project Abracadabra as a tree. Here on the terminal, it has now executed actually commands on my system. Now what it wants to do, it wants to render the data as a tree in a browser. Let's approve this. And here we go. So Project Abracadabra, development and production. I can see the app in here. Okay, cool. Because sometimes a graph is just not as usable as a tree view or a table. Could do that as well. And I also could, and I hope you are following along in the background, yeah? We're trying these kind of things out, and you probably have some ideas what you could do as well. Could you please add a post database to my PlatformCon 25J application in the development environment using a path. So this is now literally just proving out that the capabilities of the MCP server, enhanced by the definitions of path that I have provided ahead of time, is actually able to do those kind of jobs. And fun fact is, in the background, I could do the same. I could now add a database resource to my application by going to the source code of my application. And that would actually cost me 3 lines of source code. But imagine doing this only once in a blue moon. Yeah, how often do you create fresh databases as a developer? You probably do not do that very often. Yeah, so you are probably afraid that something could go wrong if you do not follow the procedures as correct as you need to be, or you are generally afraid to execute something against an environment that will cost money. Yeah, so there's a natural inhibition to do that. And using such an interface that always gives you clear feedback of what it's going to do, so you can see, confirm, okay, this is actually what I wanted. Gives you a lot of reassurance in those cases, and possibly enables you to carry out the task nevertheless. So a PostgreSQL database has been added. Awesome. Can you promote the current state of the development environment of platform on M5J to the staging environment for me, or possibly using a file. And let's not do this before. Can you please generate a review of the PlatformCon application, including elements and workloads, as well as databases. Let's do that quickly and see that we actually, when we promote the status up, that we get a change. By the way, people, I know that we are nearing completion. So I'm generally already opening this up for Q&A. So if you have any questions or any ideas, anything you want me to reflect on, please put that into the chat or into the Q&A tool already. Yeah, so I can do that. Okay, cool. So as you can see, I have here. That is interesting. Let me open that up. So this is my development environment. So this is now as it is. As you can see, there's a Postgres database here. Let's go to staging. Nothing has been deployed to this environment. Now let's do this. And shoot. Can you please paste one of the prompts? Yes, Anita, I can. So where's the Canyon MCP server hosted? That is running locally on my machine, because I do not want that to be anywhere else, right? That's the part of the setup instructions where you download the MCP server and then you run it on your own machine. You basically configure a client to interface with it. And that means as soon as client wants to talk to it, it will start an instance of the MCP server locally. And for me, that is really important because client works locally in my IDE. I have the MCP server locally, so I can be sure that there is nothing happening talking to strange MCP servers on the internet. All right, so the first two prompts again, let me paste those again into the chat. That is the starting prompt and the one that reinforces. Okay, it says, okay, I promoted this to staging. Let's take a look. And as you can see in staging, I can already see something. There was a try to deploy this into staging, but there's no resource definition for Postgres found. Yeah, so I would need to actually, my MCP is desperately asking for a validity Manatech API token. Okay, the most easy way to get one is to install cmctl and then use cmctl login. I hope that cmctl is part of the installation instructions. If not, let me quickly patch that for you. Wait, this is wrong. Let's ask AI. After all, as you can see, that works quite nicely. But that is much more pasteable if that was not part of the installation instructions. There you go. Yes, you can see it create the MCP server using Node.js. That is correct. It is always using Node.js because VS Code is based on Node.js. Okay, so you can come up with a ton more of queries. This is a chatbot, right? You can ask it anything. But for inspiration of what you should really come up with and where, so to speak, the bacon is hidden, why I've pulled you down the path of actually going here into VS Code and doing things. This is actually happening behind this little icon here. There it says MCP servers. And as you can see, there is a marketplace for them. I only have installed, interesting, it should say that I have the Canyon MCP server installed. And last time I went to that tab, it actually said that. But nevertheless, there is a marketplace for MCP servers. And as you can see, there's like a ton of things coming in from AWS, but there are also things like Jira from Atlassian. Yeah? So you could install the Atlassian MCP server, which would allow you to connect to Jira as a ticketing system. And then all out of a sudden, what I have used as a pattern in the past, that my IDE is actually integrating different things and providing a harmonized workflow over them all, gets to be a reality. Yeah, all out of a sudden, I can ask client to, hey, can you create a database in that, and then update the status of the ticket that I'm working on in Jira to in progress. And because now it has the Jira MCP server and is able to talk to my Jira instance, it can actually do that. And with each MCP server that you add in here, and that could be a standard configuration of your platform, you can actually enhance the capabilities at the fingertips of your platform consumers. So looking out for MCP servers that are available for components of your platform is something that I would propose to you to do. And that can lead to the fact that this interface, although in the beginning it feels a little bit clumsy and it always feels like I could possibly do that quicker, because developers usually know how to script things and know how to work with CLIs and APIs. They possibly would think, I could possibly do this quicker, if they are not afraid to do so, if they know their way around, because they are executing this kind of workflow more often. Yeah, but as soon as you integrate different capabilities into a workflow, that scale is tipping quite quickly into the other direction. Yeah, so that is where it actually gets interesting. All right. As time is a little bit short because of the little hiccups we had, I will not install more MCP servers now to show you what that looks like, but I highly encourage you, because you will have access to Canyon for a little bit more time, to also install a few more MCP servers and see and play around. So as I said, if you have access to a test Jira instance, the Atlassian one is great. If you have access to Confluence, obviously you can let the thing look for documentation that is in line with. If you, let's see, what else do we have? There is like Cost Explorer, for example. Yeah, you could ask Cost Explorer if you are creating a database. You can tell it like, hey, do assume that this database would be created in AWS. Can you ask Cost Explorer for the price that would get, and let me confirm before I actually want to create a database. Stuff like that. All kinds of things, right? So we are at time. Let me see. I possibly have not. Yeah, I do not have access to the Q&A tool. At least I can't see that. But I do have access to the chat. So if there are any more questions, I have a little bit more time. I don't know if you want to jump to the next session. If you want to do so, of course, feel free to. And I hope that you have a few more great sessions at PlatformCon today. If you have a few more questions, I'll be happy to stay a little bit longer and answer them. And yeah, I hope you get a little bit of value out of this and had some fun. And yeah, see each other soon again.